Most people are not going to live on a mansion on the beach. But there are certain people who will. And I think the most fundamental, most important thing is belief. You have to have self-belief. You have to believe in yourself. So I always believed in myself and my ability to achieve externally. My issue was I wasn't focused on self-improvement.
Hello and welcome to a new series of our podcast you've called Grow and Glow. And today the first time in the English language and the first time with an international guest from the USA, Alan Lazaros. Welcome you here. Thanks that you're here, Alan.
First of all, gratitude. I always want to start with gratitude. Thank you for having me. I playfully joked between when we had our pre-call and this interview, and I said, don't worry, I learned all of German for this interview. and then you realized I don't even know a single word, although I do have German heritage. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I started listening to podcasts 9 years ago, and they really helped me reorient my life in a much more constructive, positive direction. So I feel very grateful to now help other people do that.
Cool. Thank you, Alan. And maybe I can introduce a little bit and what are the topics for today. So I met Alan at a platform which is for podcasters. And as Alan told you, he is into podcasts for 9 years now. So doing a lot of podcasts. And when you give it in YouTube, Alan Lazaros, you see a lot of different podcasts with him. And he created or established some years ago our own university, Next Level University, where he also helps, for example, podcast young people coming to their success, as he has a really interesting own story. And I would like to talk to you today about being an entrepreneur in your mid-30s today, as you also started much earlier, and what you can give it to the young people, to the generation set today, how to start that thing, because our viewers are people who want to make more out of themselves, how they can start, what they have to focus on, but for what they also have to be ready, because I think you're also a lot of, as we said, failures. We talked before that some minutes. He said, let's talk more about the failures than the success. It's even more interesting. And I have some interesting questions, but maybe let's start with that, Alan. And maybe you tell us a little bit about your story, how everything started in your way. And it's also interesting because, as I said, there are a lot of differences between the USA and Germany in things of entrepreneurship.
I'm fascinated by that. I've never personally been to Germany yet. It's definitely something I intend on. But you've already illuminated for me some of the differences, which I think is fascinating. And so I'm very curious to learn from you as well. But okay, so my story, first and foremost, didn't understand any of this at the time. This is only in hindsight. It's kind of like when you watch a movie as a kid. I saw a movie called Finding Nemo when I was a kid, and then I watched it again as an adult, and all of a sudden now I get it. Okay, got it. There's jokes in there I didn't understand. So when you look and reflect upon your life, so now I'm 35, I'm going to be 36 in November, even though I look 12, which really helps me in my business career. No, doesn't help at all to look young, particularly in business. But I have rewatched the movie of my own life, so to speak, over and over and over again. Particularly in my 30s, I started doing therapy. Now, the key when I tell this story is to realize that I didn't realize most of this stuff until my 30s. Okay. And I'm going to give you the high level. I'm going to try to condense 35 years into less than 5 minutes. So this is going to be very high level, and I'm a chronological numbers thinker. I'm an engineer, so it's going to be mostly numbers. Okay. So when I was 2 years old, my birth father was 28 years old, and he passed away in a car accident. My sister at the time was 6. I was almost 3. My mother was 31. She was a stay-at-home mom. I had a stepfather from age 3 to 14, and I playfully refer to that part of my life as boats and BS. We had snowmobiles, we had a Ducati motorcycle, we had trucks, and we had boats, and we ski trips, and it was the .com bubble, or early to mid 1990s. My stepfather worked for a company called AGFA. They did hospital computers, and the .com bubble in the US in particular, but globally the economy was booming, but particularly in the US, the economy was insane in the 90s. And so we were just everyone in the 90s in the US, it felt like everyone was winning. It felt like everyone was expanding. Everyone had money. It was so weird. It was so weird in hindsight. At the time, I didn't know any different. But my mom
People
and
live
step,
the American dream at the fullest.
in the 90s, it was wild.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. Honestly, it was too much. People were losing their minds, in my opinion, in some ways. But just a lot of, in particular, my mom and stepdad, they hung out with other people that were doing very well, who loved to party, and my mom and stepdad loved to have fun. And so they just surrounded themselves with other sort of semi-rich people that also loved to have fun. So I call it boats and BS, boats and bullshit. I mean, it was just ridiculous. It was running amok, it felt like. So anyways, and my mom and stepdad did not get along, and that's a polite way to put it. So at 14, hardest year of my life in hindsight, didn't understand this at the time, stepfather leaves. He gets the yacht and the apartment building. We get the house and the dog. And he leaves, takes 90% of the income with him. So I go from Xbox, Dreamcast, boats, and ski trips to now I get free lunch at school because our income is so low. I don't know how I'm going to go to college because I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. And my mom trades in her BMW for a little Honda Civic. And so we're not going to starve by any means, which I need to make clear. But we went from very abundant to I don't have a dad. My birth father died. My stepfather left. There's no trust fund. There's no big, bright future here. And I have to figure something out. And my stepfather leaves at 14, takes his entire extended family with him. My mom that same year gets in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, her sister, and we get ostracized from that side of the family. And when my birth father passed away, my birth father's name is John McCorkle. And he was part of a big Irish Catholic family. It was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. So it was 6 kids, all J. Yeah. And we didn't really associate much with the McCorkles when we were being, quote unquote, the Lazaroses. So I took my stepfather's last name, I think around age 7.
Okay.
And so by the time I'm 14 years old, and again, I didn't understand this until my 30s, I kind of lost 3 full families in a way. And that same year, my older sister moved out too. And so there's 4 trauma responses. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is the one I didn't understand, and that's you're kind of a coward. You don't really say what you really think. You don't really say what you really believe. And I became this sort of social coward who always wanted to fit in and who struggled to speak his truth. But behind the scenes, my trauma response was fight. It was aim higher, work harder, get smarter. Aim higher, work harder, get smarter. I mean, all I knew up till 14 years old was loss and adversity. And yeah, there was some fun times too, but for the most part, it was just loss and adversity. And so I became this secret super achiever who thought that wealth was going to solve my problems. So I got straight A's through all of high school. I got what's called the President's Award signed by George W. Bush. It's behind me. And all report cards, 95 or above GPA, 16 report cards straight. And then I was the obnoxious kid at the award ceremony that never really sat down. I got every mathematics award, physics award, science awards. It was award.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, so fortunately, and the reason I tell you that is I got tons of scholarships and financial aid because the school that I wanted to go to, the college I wanted to go to, was called Worcester Polytechnic Institute. I wanted to go ever since I was 10 years old. Go ahead.
But Alan, what was motivating you in this time to be so good in school, as you had so much disasters in your private life?
My mom, fortunately, and all of us think our parents did a good job in certain things and terrible in others. I think my mom did a really good job in this one particular thing. She told me, Alan, when I don't know if I was 7 or 8, she said, Alan, you can be a CEO or you can be a farmer. I'm going to love you either way. But if you go for CEO and you aim high, you can wake up one day and decide to be a farmer, but it doesn't work the other way around. So aim high and you'll have choices. And she was right. Yeah. I mean, but I also believed in myself a ton. And I also was kind of gifted with, and this is scary to share, but I was kind of gifted. I built my first computer when I was 12. I was proving math books wrong in high school. And I didn't realize I was gifted at the time because at the time you don't really know. And you don't realize how different you are until later, and you realize you're this esoteric weirdo. But anyways, I got all the scholarships, financial aid, and I was able to go to college because the school I wanted to go to is kind of like a mini MIT. It's called WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and it's one of the best engineering colleges in the world. And so I became a computer engineer. I got in, but it was $50,000 a year back then. So if it wasn't for financial aid and scholarships and me busting my butt in high school, I wouldn't have been able to go when my stepdad left. And so when my stepdad left, I went from, I can't wait to get into WPI to, holy crap, even if I get in, I don't know how I'm going to go. So anyways, I get my computer engineering degree, I get my master's in business, and then it's off to the races. And I start working for a bunch of tech companies. I work for iRobot. I work for Sensata Technologies, Tyco Safety Products, Simplex Grinnell, a company called Lens Americas, and Simplex Grinnell and Tyco Safety Products are kind of similar. They're pretty much the same company. But ultimately, I end up at a company called Cognex. Cognex sells industrial automation equipment, machine vision, the eyes of robotics, into manufacturing facilities all across the world. I start an inside sales engineering team there, and then I get promoted to outside sales. At this point, I'm in my early to mid 20s. I paid off $84,000 worth of college debt in a single year. I invested all the rest of my money. I went from 65 a year to 85, from 85 to 105, from 105 to 125, and then from 125 to almost $200,000 a year. So I was a 1% global earner. Global, not in the US. People are like, oh, in the US it's 400. I said global. So I was making at my peak about $180,000 a year in my early 20s. So I'm 24 years old, 25. I don't have kids. I don't have a mortgage. I drive a 2004 Volkswagen Passat that I bought for $5,000 cash. I'm making a ridiculous amount of money. My rent is $500 that I'm living on a lake with my girlfriend at the time, Courtney, and we split the rent. And I was just so used to being broke as a high school and college student that I just have so much money. So I just invested it all. So I put it all in a Vanguard account. I bought ETFs and stocks of tech companies that I knew would win. As arrogant as that sounds, companies that I thought have a high probability of winning. And that's when I got in my own car accident. So I'm 26 years old. I am up in New Hampshire with my little cousin. The only cousin to this day that I've seen from my mother's side, his name's Jeff. He has a son named Dan. My second cousin was with me. Going to TGI Fridays, dark winter night back in 2015. The snowbanks are covering the yield sign. I'm supposed to yield. I don't. I end up on the wrong side of the road. I look up in front of me what I thought was a Mack truck. Two things saved my life. Number one, it wasn't a Mack truck. It was a lift-kitted pickup truck. There's a bunch of those up in New Hampshire. Number two, the Volkswagen Passat, thank you, German engineering, was a tank. I used to call this car the tank. And it was a tank of a car. It was a steel trap. It was awesome. So the whole front end is completely smashed in, but the frame totally stayed. And if I was in some little Honda Civic, there's no question I would not be here. So thank you, Volkswagen, seriously. Now, after that, though, this physically we were okay, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, my dad died in a car accident when he was 28. I'm 26 at the time. This is my second chance my dad never got. So I'm just existential, quarter-life crisis. What in the actual F just happened? Completely recontemplating my entire existence, filled with regret, every good choice, every poor choice. I just contemplated everything. And in hindsight, this is obvious. In hindsight, it's very clear. I was achievement-oriented. I was improvement-oriented. I was intelligent. I was professionally developed, resume, cover letter, LinkedIn. I was successful externally, but I wasn't focused on self-improvement. I wasn't focused on personal development and personal growth. And so I was successful and deeply unfulfilled. And now I flipped the script. Actually, after that, I became super fulfilled, happy, healthy, productive, fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach. Love myself now, who I really am authentically, but now I'm broke. Started my own company. I went past broke, liquidated all my assets. And then eventually I ended up in my 30s, both successful and fulfilled, which you're there when you want your future to be an amplified version of what it already is. And so that's essentially, I think, where we all want to get to, is when you can authentically say, I want my future to be an amplified version of what it already is, my career, my relationship, my health, and my fitness.
What was taking you to this point to earning 200K a year without self-improvement?
Yeah, academic achievement and hard skills.
Have you fought before, as you have nearly broke before, of these figures, or came it only like from the year to year that it came across? How have you felt with such amount of money? But I'm really understanding this point of you after you have the car accident, because in the end you are earning this money because you worked for someone. It was your earned money, but some other guy was making much more of it, right?
Yeah, of course. Of course. And when I was young, I never used to share this stuff because I was too scared. I was too much of a coward, to just be honest.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I realized in hindsight that I had a lot of belief, because most kids have dreams and goals, but they're mostly just talking, it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really scary to say out loud, because all my friends acted like they had big dreams and goals too. And as you get older and you mature, you realize, oh, so you guys really were just talking. You didn't really do almost any of what you said. And for the younger listeners, that's going to keep. I hope that your listeners are among the people that actually follow through on what they say. But when I was a kid, I had two career paths. I had a bunch of dreams and goals, snowboarding and basketball and, fitness model and all this stuff. But the two main career paths that were practical, that I really intended on, that weren't sort of secondary to all that other stuff that I enjoy, pro gamer, semi-pro gamer, stuff like that, were I was going to be, and this was as a kid, I genuinely had these thoughts in my head. I'm going to be lawyer, politician, president, or I'm going to be engineer, master's in business, MBA, CEO, like my hero at the time, Steve Jobs. And I used to argue with my friend who was smarter, Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, and he's not my hero anymore, but I always intended on becoming wealthy. And I don't know if that's weird, or I think it is. It's probably pretty weird. But I remember I was a sophomore in college, and I remember telling one of my friends that was at a party, who I think is very insecure now. In hindsight, it's obvious, kind of a bully. And I said, I'm going to make six figures when I get out of college. And I remember he called me out. He's like, really? You really think you're going to make six figures when you get out of college? And I said, yeah. And now I realize he's just insecure and doesn't believe in himself. But I did. I did that, right? And then it was just off to the races from there. And so this idea of having big goals and dreams, there are a lot of people out there that are not achievers. They don't identify as achiever. Most of your listeners probably do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be listening to you. Mm-hmm. But you come to learn that most people don't actually believe in themselves. And they don't believe in their abilities to actually create the life that they want. And most people are not going to start and grow their own businesses. Most people are not going to succeed at the highest levels. Most people are not going to live on a mansion on the beach. But there are certain people who will. And I think the most fundamental, most important thing is belief. You have to have self-belief. You have to believe in yourself. So I always believed in myself and my ability to achieve externally. My issue was I wasn't focused on self-improvement. Mm-hmm. And that's where fulfillment comes. I think fulfillment comes when you can look in the mirror and be proud of who you are as a person. I think achievement is a different thing altogether.
Have you had people around you at this time till the car accident, which were supporting in all that what you have done?
No. So for me, and I used to never share this either because I was such a coward, but I don't think I had very good. Where I grew up, there was very few people in hindsight that actually had big goals and dreams. They all kind of acted like they did, but I don't think any of them really. I don't want to say none of them supported me. There's three types of people. There's people who put wind into your sails and they really genuinely, authentically want to see you win. And then there's neutral. People who don't really care if you win or lose. They just love you for you. I had a lot of those. And then there's the bullies. There's the people who actively, secretly, manipulatively want to see you lose. I had a bunch of those. And in hindsight, they're just deeply insecure people who would rather see you lose to feel better about themselves.
Wow. And even or when you look now back through all this time where you had these kind of stepstones, you get it through this moment where you were earning so much at this car accident, and then there was a moment, or was it essential that you had this car accident to be here where you are today?
Some sort of a wake-up call would have had to happen, because I have this framework that I use. I call it the 3 circles of the ego. And it's super important, but I didn't understand any of this shit back then. Pardon my French. Is this explicit? Am I allowed to swear? I don't want to swear a bunch, but
No
it's
problem.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
no problem. All right. So I'm not going to start dropping F-bombs or anything. Sometimes I need to emphasize a point.
Yeah,
So,
it's fully okay.
okay, awesome. All right. So there's the 3 circles of the ego, and everyone has these 3. Everyone. All right, so picture a target with 3 circles. The outer layer, the outer rim, the outer circle is what you want others to believe you. That's your persona. That's your image. That's your reputation. Then you go one more layer in, and it's what you want to believe you are. These are the lies you tell yourself. You tell yourself you're good looking when you're not, or you tell yourself you're ugly when you're actually good looking. It's just a protective mechanism. It's comforting lies instead of unpleasant truths. And then the inner circle is who you really are. It's who and what you really are when no one's watching. This is the truth. And the car accident for me collapsed all 3 of those circles to be the same. And I've worked really hard for the last 9 years, almost 10 years now, to keep those circles the same. Because if you don't keep those circles the same, it's like a GPS that has inaccurate data. You're just going to keep driving off a cliff and then blaming the world, when in reality, you just see yourself, others, and the world inaccurately. And so the ego, there's something called a psychological immune system. It makes you feel better about yourself by telling you comforting lies instead of facing hard realities. So if you're a man and you're short, you would rather pretend that that's not a big deal than realize that most women don't want to date someone who's short. And that's a fact of reality. And if you're out of shape and you want to feel better about yourself, you can pretend you're in shape, or you can actually admit that you're not in shape and then go do something about it. And so I try to focus on the second one. Most people are really good at just telling themselves a new story. Very few people are really good at changing their actual behavior.
Yeah. And additionally to that, I remember you told me last time at the pre-chat, really interesting point, because I see the simulators now with the kind of 4, how have you said it, the 4 types of people who are successful but not fulfilled.
Oh, yeah.
Can you remember?
Yeah, so the 4 buckets is what I call this.
This was so stuck in my mind until since then.
Nice.
So it's a really good thing. Maybe you can tell also here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so these are the 4 buckets that I think we all go through and grow through in the human condition. And if you look at any movie that you love, or film, or literature, usually the character goes through these 4 buckets in some order. The first bucket is you're unsuccessful and you're unfulfilled. And this is certainly where I started. I remember I was a cart kid and a busboy at a golf course when I was 16 or 17. I got my license, and I was just a miserable human being. You think I look young now. Imagine me at 16, man, right? Just completely overlooked by all the women. I still look like a boy. Other dudes are men now, and they have beards, and they're 17 years old. And I'm this little prepubescent, undervalued kid who's also super smart and just hides it. So that's unfulfilled and unsuccessful. I was a cart kid and a busboy. I was making minimum wage, and I was just completely miserable and unfulfilled. And it's also kind of a toxic environment that I was into. Okay, second bucket is you are successful, and you have status, and you have respect, and you have external results, and you make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but you're unfulfilled. And that was me before my car accident. Tons of high school friends and college friends and corporate friends, and I had a beautiful model-looking girlfriend, and we lived on a lake, and I was partying all the time, and I had so much money. I was successful, but deep down, I was not fulfilled. I was not proud of the man that I became. I was not into self-improvement. I was into external achievement. Then I flipped the script, and I went into the third bucket. The third bucket is fulfilled, happy, healthy, productive, fulfilled, meaningful life, love it, unsuccessful, broke, can't sustain it. So I started a company called Alan Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know. I thought I was going to bring personal development to the education system. Yeah, that was a terrible idea. It didn't work. I went and gave some speeches and stuff to high schools and colleges, and I was a fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach, and I did 42 different photo shoots, and I did some fitness coaching, but ultimately I was pretty broke, and I had to figure out how to sustain my fulfillment. I was super fulfilled though. I loved who I was. Okay, and then the fourth bucket, that's the one that I mentioned earlier, which is successful and fulfilled. That's the one that most people will never experience. And I'm not trying to be negative. I just want to be honest. Statistically speaking, most people are not healthy, happy, productive. Most people are not wealthy, living financially free. Most people are not in a committed, loving, passionate relationship. Most people do not achieve their goals and dreams. Most businesses do fail. Like, most people are overweight, at least in my country. I'm not someone who believes. It's so weird. It's a duality. I believe in people so much. I believe in potential so much. I also face the hard reality that most people are not fulfilled and most people are not successful. And even more people are not fulfilled and not successful, and then egoing up as a compensation, pretending they're awesome when deep down they actually don't like themselves at all. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of the bullying and stuff comes in. So we all want to get to that fourth bucket. I finally got to that fourth bucket, and at this point, I'm just trying to amplify and sustain it, which is very challenging too. That's the other thing people don't teach you about success. You get success and fulfillment, and now you have to sustain it.
Yeah.
It's like when you buy a new home. That's great. You take a picture in front of it, awesome, beautiful $500,000 condo, but now you have to pay the mortgage every month. And that's kind of a good metaphor for what it's like to be successful and fulfilled and in shape. Like, happy, healthy, productive, wealthy, in love. Okay, great. Now you have to work on that every single day just to sustain it. And now imagine going from already happy, healthy, productive, fulfilled, and successful to now I have to find a way to actually do better than this. I have to climb even higher. And so success doesn't make life easier. It actually makes life more challenging, but at least you have higher quality problems.
Yeah. This was a good thing, as I also hear every time. You can get rich. Yeah, you can win in the casino, but the most important thing is to sustain this money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Which
In
requires character and skill set and money awareness and education and consistency and discipline, right? So 100%. People that win the lottery, a lot of them go broke.
Yeah. For sure, I want to say that in Germany we have some people won the 1 million in lottery, but one year later they were already broke.
Yep,
with nothing.
it's wild.
Yeah, yeah, that's even shaming. Yeah, because I don't even don't know how you can reach that you consume all your money, but at the end there is nothing left. But the person itself is himself is not he can't do anything for that because we don't learn. Maybe we don't learn this thing, how to sustain the money, how to invest. I'm 21 now. I'm really glad that I learned from my parents how to sustain money, that you don't have to consume all your money until you're 18th. All the money I got, my parents said, okay, we took 80% of the money you get from the birthday, you get it
Nice.
from other things. And I haven't understood this at all. But then at the end, they said, you're 18 now, and you have 7K on your bank account.
Nice.
And they said, now look what you will do with it. But
nice.
Good thing that I already were smart in this thing. I informed myself, and now with 21, 3 years later, I can say that I get more and more into all the business and invest money, lost money. But that's important to get to know how to handle this. But now my next question is, or the most interesting thing is, how does the way go further at your career after the car accident? After that, I think you had then the, as you said, the lectures for the universities, but that haven't gone well.
Yeah.
What was the next step?
So one thing I want to add real quick, when we go back to the lottery thing, I wrote an article way back on my LinkedIn. It's not there anymore because I think it was hot garbage when I reread it, so I deleted it. But the concept was really powerful. And this is something that any young listener, really try to let this sink in. And this is more of an issue in my country because we have the largest economy by a significant margin. And so I think Americans have gotten a little bit entitled. Not all of us. Okay. So any Americans listening, don't freak out. Like, not everyone, but I do think some people are kind of losing it. And what I mean by that is anyone who wants massive rewards for minimal effort is in serious trouble. If you go into life, and that's what the lottery is. I want to give $1 and I want to win $1 million.
Yeah.
It's the mentality. Not only is it stupid because mathematically it's just dumb, but so not only are you unintelligent, but you also have a mentality where you want big rewards for minimal effort. To me, I'll never hire anyone like that.
Yeah.
I look for the opposite. I look for people who don't come with their hand out. What can I get? I look for people who want to contribute. I'm here to contribute.
Yeah.
I haven't asked you for anything.
Yeah.
But I'm spreading my mission. I'm practicing my craft. I'm honored to be here. That's the type of person you want to be. And that's the type of person you want to be around. Entitled people are in so much trouble because they have this idea of wanting massive results for minimal effort. And that's just a broken, it's a terrible long to short-term strategy, or mid to long-term strategy. Short-term, I think it is probably a pretty good strategy. Mid to long range, terrible strategy, right? And that will catch up with people. So for the young people out there watching or listening, if you have any entitlement whatsoever, particularly my country, get rid of it now. The world doesn't owe you anything. You need to take personal responsibility for your own goddamn life. And trust me, you'll thank me one day for saying that. All right. Anyone who thinks that the world owes them something, and then when things go wrong, they blame and victimize, and that it's just a losing strategy. Everyone gets cards they're dealt. I was born in a tough situation. It's what you do with it that matters. And I just wanted to say that. Okay. So the other question was, speaking of getting tough cards. So I was a naive optimist who thought that I could bring self-improvement to the masses.
Cool.
And in some ways, I'm still trying to do that. Yeah, thank you. So cool, right? Terrible idea. I gave some speeches at high schools and colleges. I made some money. I was doing modeling. I was a fitness coach, and I had some online programs. I naturally fit for life, sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, breathwork, supplementation. I was trying really hard to help people, and I actually thought people would pay for that. After that, I realized that's going to lose. And then I had a coach. His name was Alex. Best coach I've ever had. I actually lost him because I was late too many times. He canned me, and he should have canned me, by the way, because I wasn't taking it as seriously as I should have. And it's only in hindsight, when you get older and older and older and older, you learn, you grow. And then you look back at all the people who gave you guidance, and you realize most of them didn't know anything that they were talking about. Most of the advice I got was garbage. Garbage. Alex, everything he said was right. Everything he said was on point. And at the time, I actually thought he was unkind. He wasn't unkind. He was trying to tell me the truth. He was trying to upgrade my software with accurate understanding. So I'm so grateful. He said this. He said, Alan, tell me all your dreams. And I was like, I'm going to be a fitness coach, and I'm going to be a podcaster and speaker and motivator. And he said, oh, okay. All right, here's the list of 9. He said, if I said you could only achieve one of them. And I said, what do you mean? I'm going to achieve all of them. And he said, no. Just bear with me. Hypothetically, if I said you could only achieve one of them, which one would you choose? And I said, honestly, it's podcasting. Being a podcaster. And he said, why? And I said, because I don't have to ask someone, hey, can I come in and speak in order to practice my craft? I can speak into the lives of people in a meaningful way on my own terms whenever I want. And I can practice my craft on my own terms. And we're connecting with listeners. And it's just awesome. And he said, okay, here's the secret. If you go all in on that one, you can have all the rest. Dude, he was so right. That was back when we had the Hyperconscious podcast. So I started a little podcast called Conversations Change Lives. Mm-hmm. Kevin Palmieri, my business partner now. Yeah. 7 or 8 years later. 9 years later. 8 years later. was my first guest. He had a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. Change the way you think, change the way you act. I was his first guest. He kept having me on. And then eventually we partnered up and we had the worst named podcast of all time, which is the Conversations Change Lives Meets Hyperconscious Podcast. That was a terrible name. So eventually, we went all in on the Hyperconscious Podcast. We did the Hyperconscious Podcast together. First, it was 1 episode a week. Then it was 2. Then it was 3. Then we jumped to 5. And eventually we did every day. Around episode 650 or so, we rebranded to what's now known as Next Level University. Level up your life, love, health, and wealth. No matter how hard your past has been, no matter how hard your present is, you have a spotless future and there is a next level for you. And your life will improve when you improve. And so it's holistic self-improvement in your pocket from anywhere on the planet, completely free. 1% improvement per day in the areas that matter: health, wealth, life, and love. Health is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Wealth is how you make your money, how much you make, and whether that's increasing or decreasing and where you invest it. And then love is intimate relationship, friends, family, colleagues, clients, mentors, mentees. Holistic self-improvement, because I had all these mentors, right? And I saw them, they were wealthy but not healthy. Or they were healthy and wealthy but not in love. They take better care of their freaking Porsche than they do their own family. And I looked at their lives and I realized they're not fulfilled. Now, being wealthy is wonderful. And I think everyone should try to create financial abundance in their life. The way you do that would change based on my understanding of you. But what I do know is if you're getting wealthy at the expense of your health, that's a giant L. It's not smart. It's not intelligent. And also, if you're not in love, I told Emilia, we have 3 businesses between the two of us. Emilia is the love of my life in every regard. I said, I don't want to be at the top of this mountain, not in love. And when you start a business with your intimate partner, you have challenging conversations. And so it makes it challenging. I mean, most businesses fail. Most people get divorced. Let's combine those. The math on that, I said, we're taking a real risk here. Now, I said, I don't want to be at the top of the mountain, not in love. So love needs to be first. And that's for me, because success for me comes fairly easy. Love does not. Relationships never came easy. I'm this weird, esoteric computer engineer. A girl asks, hey, do I look fat in this? And I say, yes, at level 6 out of 10. Like that doesn't fly. But with Emilia, it does, because she's amazing and she's brilliant and all this stuff. But it took me 30 years to get the love thing figured out.
Understand.
Because the success thing always came naturally. And so most of us are either good at success or good at relationships. Very rarely are you good at both. Almost never. And most people build their career on one or the other. But if you want to truly be a leader, you have to get really good at both.
Yeah. One of my mentors said always at every lecture, he's only said, one thing which is holding me to my business is love. Love to my business, love to other people, to love something. And it will hold you every time to that once thing stuck through all the hard times.
Yep. Yeah, I do more. I'll do more for Emilia and our pets and our lifestyle and to make sure that she achieves. We have these big dreams together. We visioned out decades, and I'm more ignited for that than I am for myself.
Cool.
Right? And so what is the most meaningful to you is always going to ignite you the most. But if you're doing work that you don't care about, that isn't meaningful work, you're probably not very fulfilled. And most likely you're not that good at it because you're just not going to pour your whole self into it.
Cool. And then as Next Level University started, do you have it in quick now? For 10 years, you're already in this business now. What are you making now with the Next Level University as you started with the podcast? How was the way that you switched to the old Next Level University? How you built that?
Yeah, so now it's become, I mean, we started out like any podcaster, naive and just giving it a shot. But now we have a 22-person team, actually 21 as of this week. I got to start upgrading my awareness on that, 21. And we're heard in 175 countries. And so this is kind of I'll give you the high level breakdown. So Next Level University is the name of the business and the name of the podcast. That's about success, fulfillment, and holistic self-improvement. We have another podcast. It's Kevin's podcast, my business partner, called Podcast Growth University. And that's for people who want to start, grow, scale, and monetize a podcast. I'm creating a third podcast underneath our Next Level University
Yeah.
company
Yeah.
called Business Growth University, which is how to start, grow, scale, and monetize a business. Some
Okay.
podcasters want to start a business. Some businesses need a podcast for lead gen. We help podcasters create businesses. We help businesses create podcasts. And then we also just help people improve themselves, because if you want to be a leader and you want to start a business, if you don't improve yourself, you're in some serious trouble, for sure, like I was prior to my car accident. And so other than that, I mean, we do monthly meetups every month. We have a book club. We have our own journal called the Dreamliner that helps you stay on point, that I use every single day. We have a bunch of other online courses. We have a bunch of other stuff. We have 22 departments. We are focused mostly on 11 of them. It's grown and proliferated quite a bit, and we're trying to really scale self-improvement, holistic self-improvement, through podcasting and business owners, podcasters and business owners. And that's our main sort of focus. But it all started from just trying to figure it out. And my business partner, Kevin, and this is kind of the last piece here, and I think for everyone listening, you'll understand. I want you to try to understand where you're at. So I'm a coach who also podcasts. Kevin is a podcaster who also coaches. And there's a big difference between those two. And let me give you the cheat code here real quick. I'm not very good, in my honest opinion. So I used to think I was a strong communicator. I now realize I'm a strong communicator to engineers. Mm-hmm. I would go give speeches with Kev, and they would all like him better and like his speech better. And I'd sit there and go, I don't understand. My speech is way more valuable.
Yeah.
Not everyone's looking for value. A lot of people are looking for entertainment, and they're looking to feel good. Kev can cast a wider net better than I can. He's good at relating to people. He makes people feel seen, heard, understood, and valued. For me, I'm this esoteric weirdo who kind of just holds up the mirror of, hey, you're not good enough yet. And I realize now that I'm good at one-on-one coaching because it's customized to each individual. So the medicine that you give one patient will actually kill another. Let me give you an example. So hard work is a spectrum. If you are 10 out of 10 hardworking, I need to get you to focus on rest and relaxation. But most people are not that hardworking, and they think they are. So the last thing they need is make sure you get your rest and relaxation. Like, that's not what they need. And it all depends on the goal, right? If you have a huge goal, you're going to have level 10 standards, and I'm going to have to be holding you accountable to a whole nother level. But if you have small goals, you don't even need a coach, maybe. So podcasting for me is casting a much wider net, and I kind of suck at that. I'm getting better, but I'm a coach first and a trainer. So for me, it's three things. It's podcasting, training, and coaching, helping individuals, teams, and businesses optimize and align toward their goals and dreams, metrics, habits, identity work toward goals. But for Kev, he's a podcaster first, and he also coaches. And so if you're out there listening, are you someone who should be casting a wide net to the masses, or are you someone who's this esoteric weirdo who needs to be very specific and niche? And then most likely you should partner with the opposite, because Kev, everyone loves him. Not a lot of people like me, but Kev needs me and I need Kev. And it's really important to understand that you need both. Yeah, you need both.
Understood fully. Okay, maybe the last questions, Alan. When you would start today again, where would you pursue your career in?
Yeah.
As when you start today, as in the things of entrepreneurship, as a young person, would you start again in podcasting in this thing, or would you even choose already something else?
Great question. Most people will never achieve their goals, and even if they do, they won't be fulfilled because of low self-awareness. I was not self-aware enough. I didn't understand what I just told you about the coach first, podcast third, right? So podcasting is one to scale, training is one to many, and coaching is one to one. I'm really good one to one. But there's a lot of people listening that might not like me. And if they don't like me, they won't work with me, regardless of how good I might be for them, right? Mm-hmm. So if I could go back, what I would do is try to face the hard truths about myself sooner. And I would try to understand the differences between Kevin and I would try to understand the strengths and weaknesses. Every strength comes with a weakness. Everyone. I'm brilliant and very intelligent, and even saying that turns most people off. They know it's true. It is what it is. I've always been that way, but you're not allowed to say it. It's only in my 30s where I started to have the courage to actually kind of own it. Like, yeah, I'm very bright. I'm very intelligent. But most people aren't, so they get really insecure. Kevin needs someone in his corner who's really intelligent. I need someone in my corner who's likable and relatable.
Yeah.
And so if I could go back in time, I would tell me to focus on understanding my inherent strengths and what are the weaknesses that come with that, and how do I find someone who's aligned in terms of goals and core values that has a complementary skill set. It's the yin and the yang of business.
Yeah.
Business comes down to two things, okay? It's goal achievement and relationships. I am really good at goal achievement and really terrible at relationships. Kevin is really good at relationships and terrible at goal achievement. And so together we're better. And hopefully you and your partner can say the same.
Yeah. Really interesting. And maybe I can have this question, as I told you, to ask something like this in Germany. It's not so common. What was now for 10 years in your business the most amount of money you did in 1 year with Kevin together?
So that's going to be, it's going to be this year. Not even hopefully, it's going to be this year. So the most we've ever done. So if this year goes 10 out of 10 well, we're going to hit $500,000 this year.
Cool.
If it goes horribly wrong, we're going to only do 400K.
So 100K
US.
So relatively, it's not even much, but still really really good for the next level university business, right?
Yeah. So I always joke. I say for a podcast, we're extremely successful. Most podcasts don't make any money. For a business, we're a little minnow in the ocean. Right? Yeah, Amazon makes more per minute than I make all year. So so as a business, we're still small and we're a little toddler running around. As a podcast, we're really doing a great job. And so all things are relative, as Einstein said, right? So.
Really nice. Thank you, Alan, for this kinds of things we could dive into your business, into your way, and also things you gave to our people. As also hear a little bit, you still also don't have only the contact with entrepreneurship, also with investing. As you said the one time, you said, okay, you have 200K now, so you start also to invest, right? Is this in today's time also so that you say investing not only in so the most important is in yourself, but also in assets?
Yes. So if you're a business owner, invest in self first and then invest in the business second. And you got to invest in the right things. So for me, podcasting, training, and coaching, time, effort, and money. Those are the only resources anyone has, time, effort, and money. Yeah. What are the investment accounts you're putting those in? So I'm trying to get better at podcasting, training, and coaching. Kevin is trying to get better at podcasting first, and then we have a podcast production company, and then he's coaching podcasters. So if you focus on the right stuff and invest in the right things, you'll be very, very successful over the long term. Short term, it seems like nothing is paying off.
Yeah, that's important to understand. Investing in yourself.
Yeah, you got to do that. That's got to be
easy. Three words. But unfortunately, also not everyone is doing. But it's essential to be successful.
I did in college. I invested in myself, I guess, through academics. But I didn't invest in my own self-improvement until after 26. So imagine where I could have been had I started earlier. So I wish I had invested more in myself. No one ever later in life regrets, oh, I really wish I hadn't read so many books. I really wish I hadn't invested so much in myself. No one ever regrets investing in themselves, ever. Yeah. So,
but you can be proud of you where you're standing today. 100%. Thanks to that, Alan, that you have been a guest on our podcast, and hope to see you soon. Thanks for all the things you said.
Daniel, thank you for having me. I started with gratitude. I want to end with gratitude. Thank you for having me. Keep doing what you're doing, my friend. Keep pouring self-improvement and personal development into the lives of young people. You say Gen Z, I say Gen Z. Either way, reach out anytime, my brother. I appreciate you.
Thanks.